Okay, so now we're going to start element number 9, which is related to work equipment. So in this chapter, we're going to discuss about the hazards and controls related to the various equipment and tools that we use in the workplace. Okay, we'll discuss some general requirements for work equipment in this topic first. So basically, there are various types of work equipment. Most commonly, we use simple hand tools, which include hammers, chisels, etc. Then there are handheld power tools. Handheld power tools are those tools which are operated on electricity or operated on power. They could be what you call pneumatic power, or it could be electrical power as well. Then we have single machines, single units of machines. We might have mobile work equipment. Mobile work equipment is the equipment which can move from one place to another. Then we have machine assemblies. So single machine is just one piece of equipment or machine, and machine assembly is basically a series of machines, just like in an assembly line where you have various manufacturing machines, then they are connected to conveyor machines. So in factories, in manufacturing plants, you can have machine assemblies. So these are the various types of work equipment that are commonly used in the workplace. Now we're going to discuss about them one by one. Okay, so whenever we use any machinery or equipment or any tool, we must make sure that it is suitable for the work that we are carrying out. Okay, so basically the suitability of any equipment or machinery, it is basically very important to identify, because if you use the wrong piece of equipment for a certain job, it can create hazards. How will we make sure that the given equipment is suitable for any activity which we are doing? The best thing is to look at the manufacturing standards. Okay, so you need to identify or understand which standards this machine or equipment has been manufactured to, and what are the instructions of the manufacturer, and where that machine is supposed to be used. Okay, you also need to make sure that the manufacturers, they have to provide a certification, a certain marking on the machine and equipment to make sure that they are meeting the health and safety requirements. Okay, so usually one of the most common markings which is seen is called CE. This is CE stands for Certificate de Europa. So this is basically a European conformity mark, and basically what the manufacturer is doing, that by giving a CE mark, they are declaring conformity to the European standards. So they are saying, basically by the CE mark, they are saying that this equipment or tool has been manufactured in accordance with the European what you call it norms. Okay, so this is basically the suitability criteria. So you can have a look at the standard against which the tool was manufactured, and then use it accordingly as well. Okay, one of the most important what you call it aspects of machine safety or equipment safety is you need to make sure that all the dangerous parts of the machinery are made safe. Okay, because when you use a machine or an equipment, the machinery or equipment, it has a lot of dangerous parts. Those dangerous parts could be hot surfaces. There could be a certain part of the machinery which gets very hot. For example, in the vehicle, the radiator, which is basically, it uses water to circulate and keep the body of the engine cool. It becomes really hot. Okay, so that's a dangerous part of machinery, and there is very hot water inside it. Then there are other parts which are moving parts of the machinery. So moving parts of machinery, they can easily entrap your clothes, your hair, your jewelry. It can become entangled, and it can really, it can pull you in and cause serious injury as well. So those dangerous parts of machinery, they must be protected. They must be prevented. Access must be prevented to those dangerous parts, such as hot surfaces or very cold surfaces or moving parts. So usually there are certain measures that you can take to prevent access. Most commonly, you use fixed guards. Fixed guard are the best option to prevent access to dangerous parts of machinery. Sometimes they're not feasible. So if they're not feasible, then other guards and protection devices are used. You can also use protection appliances. Another very important control is to give information, instruction, training, and supervision to people to tell them about dangerous parts of the machinery and how they can prevent what you call it contact with the dangerous parts of the machinery. Okay, the information, instruction, and training, it should be given to all people, including the users of the work equipment. The users of the work equipment, they need to know how to operate the equipment, and they need to be told that they should only operate those pieces of equipment that they are authorized to use. You should never operate unauthorized equipment. So if you're not authorized to use a certain equipment, don't use it. You should only use or operate that equipment which you have been authorized to use. Okay. You should operate the equipment in accordance with the given instruction and training. So you need to follow the given instruction and training. You should only use the equipment for its intended purpose. So don't use a piece of machinery which is meant for cutting steel. Don't use it for cutting concrete or other kind of things. Carry out safety checks before using the equipment. This is very important. So you need to make sure before using that the equipment is safe to use. You should not use equipment if it is unsafe. How can the equipment become unsafe? The equipment will be unsafe if a certain guard is missing. Okay, if a certain guard has been removed, that equipment is unsafe. If the equipment has been damaged, it is unsafe. If the electrical cords or cables have been damaged, it is unsafe. So you need to make sure that it is not unsafe to use. If there are any defects, you need to report them immediately, and you should not use the equipment under the influence of drugs or alcohol. So if somebody is under the influence of drugs or alcohol, it means they're not in their proper senses and they cannot control their body. So you should never ever use any kind of tools or equipment under the influence of drugs or alcohol. Keep equipment clean and maintain in a safe working order. So you need to make sure that you keep the condition. Okay, then the equipment that you're using, you need to make sure that you are maintaining the equipment properly as well. So there are certain maintenance requirements of the equipment as well. For example, there is PPM, planned preventive maintenance. Planned preventive maintenance is very important for certain equipment because after a certain period of time, some parts or some what you call it components of a machine or an equipment, they need replacement. Okay, and if you don't replace it, it can put the equipment in risk, and that can make the equipment unsafe. Okay, the tool or equipment or machinery, whatever you're using, it should be properly maintained, regularly maintained. And if you're unable to do that, then it can put the equipment at risk. Okay, so for example, changing the engine oil of a car. Okay, uh, or having schedule the preventive maintenance at regular intervals. That is very important. Then there is condition based maintenance. Sometimes the equipment is subject to wear and tear. So some of its parts, they might start to wear and tear. So you might need to do a condition based maintenance. For example, the brake pads of vehicles, those are a condition based maintenance, because some people, they push the brakes harder, or some people drive the vehicle in the local areas, so they apply brakes more often. So that is why they will have to replace the brake pads earlier. So that is a condition-based maintenance, that the condition of the components of the equipment have been deteriorated. They have been subjected to wear and tear, and you need to change them. This can be followed by obviously this can be raised during the routine inspection. Then there is a breakdown maintenance. If there is equipment breakdown, then you might have to carry out emergency maintenance as well. Maintenance is a very dangerous and hazardous activity. So during maintenance, you need to make sure that you protect your workers thoroughly. During maintenance, the staff is at a very high risk. So you need to make sure that before starting any maintenance, you need to make sure the guards and enclosures are removed. You need to make sure that you are safe. Because the guards and enclosures are removed, the safety devices, obviously they will be removed or disabled, hence the equipment is very high risk. Equipment is partially or completely dismantled, power sources are exposed, stored power is released. For example, a compressed spring might be released. The access to the equipment might be awkward. Manual handling of heavy parts, that can increase the risk. Additional hazards would be there in form of electricity, and there would be pressure to get the equipment back up and running as well. So maintenance, obviously, it is very high risk activities because of these reasons. Okay. Okay, what are the precautions that you need to take during maintenance? You need to make sure that you have competent staff, power sources are isolated or locked off, stored power should be released in a safe manner, cover the live parts, use PPE. If the dangerous moving parts are accessed, you need to run the equipment at a very low speed so that the severity is reduced. You need to sometimes use fit purpose made maintenance guards, and precautions should be followed for safe access, and you should use manual handling aids as well. Equipment controls and environmental factors. The controls should be well designed, easy to use, suitably located, easily identifiable. They should be in a good working order. Also, we need to make sure they are compliant with relevant standards, and emergency stop buttons, pull cords, they must be located in suitable positions as well. Okay, then we have equipment controls and environmental factors. The equipment, basically, it should be stable. It should have controls appropriately marked, and wherever any dangerous parts are available, or wherever there is a risk to the workers, the warning signs should be appropriately posted in the equipment. The lighting, wherever you are carrying out what you call it, heavy equipment work, the lighting should be adequate, it should be suitable, and it should be environmentally suitable as well, and the space should be adequate as well. Okay, 9.2 is hand tools and portable power tools. Okay, what are hand tools? Hand tools include hammer, chisel, screwdriver, axe. So all of these tools that we use, which are not operated on power, we simply use them with our hands, okay, by using our motor skills. So these are called hand tools. Okay. What are the hazards and controls of hand tools? Number one, the hazards include the tool may shatter, the handle, it may become loose, the tools may be blunt, and they might require excessive force. There could be human error. For example, your thumb, it might be hit with a hammer. Maybe there could be misuse. For example, wrong tool for the wrong job. Okay, the control of hand tools are the tools suitable for the task and environment of use. So the tool, whichever you use, it should be suitable for the task and environment of use. For example, there are some areas such as in gas plants or hydrocarbon plants, petrol or what you call it, oil plants. You are not allowed to use any sparking tools, any metallic tools, because the metallic tools, they generate a spark, and that spark can be sufficient to ignite a flammable atmosphere. Okay, so you need to use tools that are suitable for the task and the environment of use. Okay, so instead of using metallic tools in oil plants, you should use plastic tools, plastic spades, plastic hammer, and other plastic tools as well. Also, you need to give proper information, instruction, and training to the workers or operators of the tools. Tools should be inspected visually before use. You need to check the tool if there are any cracks or damages to the tool before using it. Substandard tools should be either repaired or they should be discarded. So if there's any tool which is worn out, which is torn out, and it is not in suitable condition, you should either repair it or discard it. Maintenance of the tools should be done regularly, and supervision should be monitored as well. Okay, what are the hazards and controls of power tools? Power tools, as I discussed earlier, power tools are those tools which are operated on power. So power obviously comes from electricity. So the risk of using power tools is much higher because the forces involved are much greater, which means that the potential for very severe injury exists. The additional hazards are present in power tools as well, such as electricity, petrol, noise, vibration, dust, ejected materials, and tripping hazards. So these are the additional hazards which are present with power tools. What are the controls for power tools? Number one, you should select the power tool very, very carefully, depending on the task that you are performing and the environment in which you are going to use that power tool. Some sites, such as again oil and gas sector and other high risk areas, they do not allow the use of 220-volt tools. So you'll need to select 110 tools instead of 220 ones. Okay, you need to make sure that you follow the manufacturer's instruction and follow the in-house rules. Proper training, information, and competence is required for operating the power tools. Adequate supervision should be available. The tools should be regularly inspected, routinely inspected to make sure they're in good condition. Any damaged or defective or tools, they should be repaired or they should be disposed of, and regular maintenance should be carried out by competent staff. Okay, here are the requirements for the use of power tools in a safe manner. Tools used within design specification. So do not exceed the design specification. For example, if you're using a grinding disc, you need to operate it at the speed which is specified on the disc. Do not exceed the design speed, otherwise the disc will shatter, it will break, and it will seriously injure someone. The guards and safety devices, they should be in place as well. You should never ever remove any kind of guard or a safety device before using any power tool. That can be very, very dangerous. Power cables, they should be controlled properly, they should be inspected properly, they should be in good condition. Ejected parts should be controlled, use a secure work area, isolation, so that the ejected parts don't go and injure other people. Control of noise, dust, vibration. So these are very, very common hazards, so you need to control them. Safe storage and handling of fuel, for example, petrol, and inspection and testing of electrical equipment should be there as well. Okay, now machinery hazards. Machinery hazards basically are categorized into two different categories. There are mechanical hazards related to machinery, and then there are non-mechanical hazards related to the machinery. Mechanical hazards are those hazards which arise when you come in contact or being caught up by moving parts of machinery. So if the machine itself physically, the moving parts of the machinery physically, they are they have the potential to cut you or injure you or harm you. Okay, so that specific hazard is called a mechanical hazard. So contact with or being caught up by the moving parts falls under mechanical hazard. What are non-mechanical hazards? Non-mechanical hazards are they rise from the power source or things being emitted by the machine. They are not part of the physical part of the machine itself, but they consist of the power source or other things as well. Here is a list of common mechanical hazards. Mechanical hazards include crushing. Crushing means when you get crushed between a moving part of an equipment or machinery and a stagnant part as well. So that is crushing. Then there is shearing. Shearing is breaking something. So if something gets stuck in a machine, the machine is operating, it will pull it apart. That is called shearing. Then there is cutting or severing. Any sharp object of a machine, any sharp part of a machine, it might cut or sever your fingers. Entanglement. Entanglement is when a certain part of a body, it entangles your hair or entangles your jewelry or clothes and it pulls you in. Then there is drawing in or trapping. Drawing in is when you have certain equipment which is operating, it can pull in various materials or objects. Sometimes people get drawn in. For example, in a photocopy machine. Photocopy machine basically it draws in paper. So when you're drawing in the paper, when the machine is drawing in paper, if your hands are nearby, it might even draw in your fingers as well. Then there is impact. Impact is when you strike against something. So that's also mechanical hazard. Stabbing or puncture. So if you get punctured by or stabbed by a needle, for example, that is also mechanical hazard. That is part of machinery. Okay, a needle which is a part of machinery, that is, if it punctures you, it's called a mechanical hazard. Friction or abrasion, that is also mechanical hazard. High pressure fluid injection. So all of these are mechanical hazards. So you can see in the picture here, crushing. So this guy has been crushed between this wood and the wall. Shearing is when something gets stuck and you're moving it over. That's called shearing. Cutting or severing, you can see this wood being cut. Entanglement, so a moving part, a shaft entangles your clothes. Drawing in means pulling in. Impact, something hits you. Stabbing or puncture, which is flying particles. And friction and abrasion, finally. So those are some of the common hazards related to machinery. Okay, mechanical hazards, basically they include high pressure fluid injection. Injuries can be caused by liquids released under pressure, and they may have small entry wound but travel through the tissue. So these are how mechanical hazards spread. Okay, what are the non-mechanical hazards and which are associated with machinery? Again, we just discussed the non-mechanical hazards over here. Sorry, non-mechanical hazard we will discuss now. So the non-mechanical hazards related to equipment and machinery include electricity, noise, vibration, hazardous substances, ionizing radiation, non-ionizing radiation, extreme temperatures, ergonomics, slip, trips and falls, and fire and explosion. So these are the non-mechanical hazards that are related to machinery. Okay. Control measures for machinery hazards. So how can we control these hazards now? First of all, you need to make sure that the machinery safeguarding methods are put in place. For example, fixed guards. Fixed guard is one of the best guards or measures available. Okay, and remember, guards, they fall under which kind of control measure under the hierarchy of controls? Guards are engineering controls. Guys, please remember this. Please make a note of this. The machinery safeguarding guarding methods, such as the guards and the safety devices, they are an engineering control. Okay, so this kind of question might come in the paper as well. What kind of guard? What kind of controls are machine guards? Okay, so all kinds of guards, they fall under engineering control. So most preferable or the best type of guards is fixed guards. Fixed guards are those guards which cannot be easily removed. Okay, and if they are removed, the equipment will become unsafe. Okay, so fixed guards, they are fixed, permanent, and they are not supposed to be removed. Then there are interlocked guards. Interlocked guards, they connect the operation of the equipment with the source of power. So if the guard is in place, the equipment will start. If the guard is removed, if the guard is not in place or it is removed, the equipment will not start at all. Okay, so that is called an interlocked guards. So the equipment or machine will only operate when the guard is in place. Okay, then there are adjustable or self-adjusting guards, which you can often use on bench saws, etc. Okay, then sensitive protective equipment, they might need trip devices as well. So trip devices, basically they serve to cut the power supply when the what you call it load increases to a certain level. Okay, so if there is more current passing through than the design current, then the device will trip and it will keep the equipment safe. Okay, then there are two hand controls which will only operate if you operate it from two hands. Hold to run controls are there, emergency response, emergency stop controls, protective appliances can be used as well sometimes. Finally, personal protective equipment. So all of these are things which we can do to protect people against the mechanical hazards. Machinery safeguarding methods. Obviously, this is one of the most common methods is to use machinery guards. Machinery guards, there are four main types. There are fixed guards, interlock guards, and trip guards. Fixed guards are always in place. They are the best option, but mostly they are not practical, and it is very, very difficult to fix them and very, very difficult to remove them. Then there are interlock guards. Interlock guards will only allow the equipment to be functional if the guard is in place. The equipment will never ever start without the guard in place. Okay, so that is interlocking guards. Then adjustable or self-adjusting, something which you can adjust the guard. I mean, you can, for example, when you're using the bench saw, some bench saws have an adjustable guard, so you can increase or decrease the amount of piece, the cutting saw that you want to use. And then there are trip devices, which obviously they trip under higher load. Fixed guards, they completely prevent access to the dangerous parts of the machinery. They are fixed in place and they require a tool for removal. So it's not very easy to remove them. Apart from the mechanical hazards, what hazards can fixed guards provide protection against? Yeah, so they can basically, fixed guards can provide protection against damage to the equipment as well. So equipment parts which are moving parts, if we install a fixed guard there, it will help us prevent damage to the those moving parts as well. Okay, interlock guards. Interlock guards, Basically, the guard open. What happens when the guard is open? Power to the machine is disabled when the guard is open, and it will not operate until the guard is put in place. Guard closed, the guard is locked shut until the machine has returned to a safe condition, or the act of opening the guard stops the dangerous parts of the machinery and disables the power. So these are interlocked guards. Obviously, they have some limitations as well. The systems can be bypassed. Person may give access to the close by closing the guard around them, and it needs a rule to be enforced. Okay, adjustable and self-adjusting guards. There are basically, again, two different types. You can manually set a range for the positions for the operator, and self-adjusting guards are usually spring-loaded and to adjust itself to the workplace and requires no adjustment by the operator. Then there are sensitive mats as well, which is also called trip devices. Sometimes they are what you call it. They operate when there is a certain pressure applied to the mats. Okay, but it's not a physical barrier. It uses sensor to detect the presence of operator and stop the machinery. And they include pressure mats, trip bars, and photoelectric devices. Two-hand controls, again, very, very important one. I love to use it as well. Two-hand control, basically, they operate only when both what you call it parts of the control are being used. Okay, it won't be able to you won't be able to operate the machine by using one hand. This is a very, very good and very, very useful guard to have. The controls should be more than a hand span separate, must activate at the same time, and releasing the controls should stop the machine immediately. Emergency stop controls, they should bring the machine to a safe stop as quickly as possible. Machine can be only restarted by using the reset button, and release of the button shall not restart the machine. Protective appliances, various appliances can be used such as push sticks, jigs and clamps, etc. Okay, so here are some specific machinery examples of their hazards and controls. Manufacturing and machinery, maintenance machinery, bench top grinder and pedestal drill. These are the what you call it common manufacturing and maintenance machinery. Agriculture, horticultural machinery, cylinder mower, trimmer, bush cutter, chainsaw. All of these are what you call it in use as well. Then retail machinery, compactors are used, construction machinery, cement mixer, and bench mounted circular saw are also used. Okay, there are various machinery that we use that we need to have an idea of. So you guys need to understand the hazards and controls of bench top grinder, pedestal drill, cylinder mower, trimmer or bush cutter, chainsaw, compactor, cement mixer, and bench mounted circular saw. Bench top grinder or bench mounted circular saw. You can see in the picture here the guard is placed. Okay, then there is pedestal drill as well. Compactor. Okay, so requirements for guards and safety devices is very, very important. There are a lot of standards regarding them. So the guards, obviously, they should be strong and robust, compatible with the machine operation, allows vision, ventilation, maintenance, and obviously they need to be designed for the allowment to allow for maintenance, and they should not increase the overall risk as well. Okay, identify these types of guards and protective devices. What type of guard is this? This is a fixed guard. Fixed guard prevents access. Okay, so this is the end of the what you call it element number 9. In this element, we discuss the basic management issues that must be considered while introducing new equipment. We discuss the hazards and precautions associated with hand tools and power tools. We also discuss the mechanical, non-mechanical hazards of machinery. We discuss the basic characteristics of fixed guard, adjustable and self-adjusting guards, and interlock guards as well. We explain the characteristics of trip devices, tool hand controls, and protective appliances. We also outlined the basic requirements of guards and safety devices. We discussed the hazards associated with benchtop grider and pedestrian drill, etc. We identified types of guards and other protection devices as well. Okay, guys, that's the end of element number 9. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to um, leave the floor open to you guys for any questions. But before I do that, I'm going to tell you how to